Clarity, vibrance, and saturation are going to be three sliders that are right below all the other sliders, the basic toning sliders that you have inside the basic module. Okay, so let's use these sliders on the same two photos that we worked through in the basic module so far, because I think they both kind of demonstrate pretty well what they can do for these two photos. I think you get really good examples. So first off, clarity, which by the way has been dramatically enhanced inside of Photoshop CS6 and Camera Raw 7 here. Clarity works much better. And essentially what clarity is, when you think of what contrast is going to take the blacks and make them blacker, and going to take the whites and make them whiter. And it sounds weird. It's going to take the dark stuff and make it darker, and the bright stuff and make it brighter. That's what contrast does. Now, clarity, on the other hand, clarity goes in the middle, to the middle gray areas. You hear people call it the midtones. It goes into the middle areas, which aren't necessarily really close to black or close to white, and it adds some contrast to those areas, like skies and clouds, and some of the areas that we have in here. So the best thing to do is just let me increase clarity and show you. I'm going to crank it up to 100. That's before, that's after. Before, after. See how it just adds... It almost looks like it's sharpening the photo, but it's not really sharpening. It's just adding contrast into the areas that are really hard for any of the other controls inside of Camera Raw to add contrast to. You know, look at the mountain here. It just makes it look a little bit more contrasty. Like I said, the clouds in the sky. Where the contrast slider, that's not really doing anything for the clouds, right? Contrast slider is just working on the dark parts here and the really bright parts. Okay? Your clarity, that's working on all those other, you know, not black, not quite almost black, not quite all the way white, everything in between. So for a photo like this, I think it works really well. It kind of just gives it a little bit more of a snap, a little bit more of an edge to it. Okay, and it's a great feel for some of those grungy photos too. You can crank it way up and you can get that grungy look. I don't want to go that high here, but I think it works really well with photos with lots of detail. Okay, now compare that with a photo like this. I'll crank clarity up. See, bad. Look at her face. Look at the woman's face. It just it adds that edge, that contrasty, edgy look, but it doesn't add it in a very good way for this photo. So I think you'll find that portraits, soft portraits, you know, I'm not talking about a football player. You know, football player, clarity will work great. On a family portrait, portraits of women and kids, puppies, you know, things like that, clarity doesn't work so good. Okay, it works on things with lots of detail. So you find that most photos of people, unless you want to give them that edgier type of a look, clarity's not really going to work very well. All right, let's hop back to our landscape photo. Vibrance and saturation. Vibrance and saturation kind of go hand in hand. They both give us better color presence in the photo, more saturated colors. Vibrance typically stays away from skin tones. Okay, so vibrance stays away from the yellows and the reds and the oranges, and it pretty much sticks to everything else. So when I increase vibrance in this photo, all right, kind of see it makes it a little bit more warmer, kind of punches a little bit more color into the greens and whatnot. Now, overall saturation, I could probably get away with saturation in a photo like this. Saturation is typically, it's the sunburn slider, and you're going to see that because I'll switch over to the portrait. Watch when I increase saturation. Okay, gives them a bad sunburn, right? But I can come over here and I increase vibrance, and vibrance, look at the background. Look at what it's doing back here into their shirts and stuff. Okay, but it's not really messing with their skin tones. Okay, it's making the greens more vibrant back here, but it keeps away from the skin tones, where saturation, again, that's the sunburn slider. So saturation on photos for people, typically stay away from. On photos of landscape, travel, anything with lots of colors in them, use it sparingly, because it does get really hot, really radioactive, really, really fast. So you do have to use it sparingly, but it'll punch color into all the colors rather than vibrance, which is just going to punch colors into, again, typically anything that's not a skin tone. So vibrance, don't get me wrong, lots of times use it on landscape photos because it does give you a nice color boost, where sometimes saturation looks overdone. When it comes to people and portraits, if you want to add a little bit more color to the photo, you're generally going to want to come to the vibrance slider, because saturation is really kind of going to make it look a little bit almost too overjuiced when it comes to that color saturation.